It's been a week since I released my 11.0.5 guide, and there are a few new things that have been developed since then. So first, we have Flowing Spirits, which turns Feral Spirits into a passive proc. This was bugged last week, it is now fixed. I've been doing keys with this and with Witch Doctors, and my final opinion is that these talents result in the same output across a dungeon. So Flowing Spirits is a talent with upsides and downsides. For the upsides, one upside is that you don't have to press a global on wolves, and this also saves a global in Ascendance. And the other upside is that the wolves summoned match the spells used to proc them. So you pretty much only get lightning wolves, and you have a higher chance to stack up a lot of lightning wolves. Sometimes you can get up to 10 at a time. But for the downsides, the first downside is that you have less maelstrom generation because you lose the 4% modifier from Witch Doctor's ancestry. And the second downside is that you have a bit less uptime on wolves in general. And everything here cancels itself out. Both Flowing Spirits and Witch Doctor's ancestry are equally good. And to talk about RNG, Flowing Spirits is not any more random than normal wolves are, because you could press Feral Spirit and get 3 Ice Dogs, or you could be playing Flowing Spirits and get 0 procs. I will say, I think the RNG ceiling in Flowing Spirits is a little bit higher, but the average of both builds is approximately the same. Now on the topic of talent builds, here are my 2 recommended builds. The first build is the Witch Doctor's Ancestry build that I had in my previous guide, and the second build is a Flowing Spirits build, where I opt to take Ice Strike for more Maelstrom generation. Now to talk about Ice Strike. The purpose of Ice Strike is that it is a button that generates 2 Maelstrom and can proc Wind Fury. It is a builder at lower priority than Storm Strike. Generally, you will press this when you have no Storm Strikes available but still need to generate Maelstrom. Now, I like to play this in Flowing Spirits builds because they naturally have less Maelstrom generation and more open globals. And also, you only ever play the active Ice Strike because the passive version is garbage. And the 100% Frost Shock buff on Ice Strike is irrelevant because Frost Shock does no damage and 2 times 0 equals 0. So back to the talents. Even though I gave 2 builds, realistically in the tree there are just 6 low impact talents, and I think you could simply run any combination of these 6 talents and do the exact same damage in a key, with either choice node of Flowing Spirits or Witch Doctor's Ancestry. One note is that with Elemental Blast, you will never run this with Flowing Spirits, but you can run this with Witch Doctor's Ancestry. It is optional though. Now to go back a bit on the opener and the Ascendance window, I've made some changes since the last guide. I now believe you want to hold your Wolves cast until your Tempest right before you enter Ascendance for most uptime of Wolves in Ascendance. I also believe you want to empty your Maelstrom before you enter Ascendance, then use Ascendance, and then Doom Winds immediately after. This gives the most effective globals in Ascendance. And while we are inside this Doom Winds, you want to be pressing Wind Strike every global, except for when you proc Tempest and have 10 Maelstrom, in which case you would manually cast Tempest. Now, after your Doom Winds ends, you are slightly more relaxed on the Wind Strike casts. When Wolves come up, you can press it again. When you run down to 0 Maelstrom, you can press Crash Lightning to generate and refresh the buff. And if you have any wolves that will run out soon, then you can press a 10 stack Chain Lightning or Lightning Bolt. Otherwise, you would just press Wind Strike and Tempest on 10 stacks as normal. And to talk a bit about the recent nerfs, on the last reset, we took a big nerf to all of our spenders. It came out to about 8% overall damage loss. We are still fine. The class was overtuned before, and this brought it a bit more in line. There is a Voltaic Blaze and a Doom Winds fix coming to make them scale with Mastery. When this is implemented, it will make these abilities do a reasonable amount more damage. And there was a bug fix to Stormblast double dipping and doing triple damage to Ingram Malik. So if you've seen my one phase Ingram Malik clips, don't try to replicate it because unfortunately it is no longer possible.